Welcome to the CFL Outsider, a short series of totally impartial hot takes, odd takes, and generally unconventional opinions on the CFL and Canadian football, with your host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds.
Hey kids, welcome back to the CFL Outsider, Week 17. Isn't it ironic? I remain, as always, your totally unbiased, 100% impartial, and pleasantly pleased host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Why pleasantly pleased? Well, two reasons. The first, it was a relatively good fantasy and pick'em week for Old Man here. I went 3-1 in pick'em. That left me either at 43-24 or 41-24-2, depending on whose scoring you use. In fantasy, I had two players, Rick Armstead and Shamir Bridges, go out with injuries, but Bo got me 43.2 points and Brady provided 18.9. And since I went with high target receivers, even the others played well. With the injuries, the other five still averaged 11.5 points each and left me with a total of left me with a total of 119.6. So I'll take that. I'm happy with that for this week. I do apologize that this is a bit of a late release this week. And it's because of the second reason I'm pleased. I've been challenging myself to make some changes that will hopefully improve this year's show we got going. I started this fan cast because the relentless, unceasing boredom of retirement, it was doing me head in. And I kind of felt like there were lots of general topics and perspectives on the CFL and Canadian football that weren't really being represented out there. How hard can that be, I figured. Why don't I do it? So I did. Turns out it's harder than I imagined. The first few episodes were all pretty darn cringeworthy, I gotta admit. I was struggling to find my voice and what the format was going to be. Once I got things relatively consistent, some of you folks were kind enough or strange enough that you liked it and you've been downloading regularly. And I do appreciate that, and I don't want to change anything here that will sort of dilute your enjoyment of the show at all. But I do want to expand the sort of the potential audience that we got here. Hopefully get some more people in and make it even more fun. So I'm switching things up a bit. Rather than just taking the points that I find through the games and putting them out there in point form, I'm going to do a little more traditional kind of a game story recap where I won't focus on the scoring and the big storylines that other people have, because that's all been covered. And as I've said many times, I'm looking for my little niche in this CFL ecosystem, somewhere I can fit and provide some value for people. I will keep sort of focusing on the stuff that I see that's a bit different. Hopefully this will keep the essence of the show and still make it a little more appealing to a wider audience. I'm also going to be making a changing on one of the formats of one of my bonus episodes. Old Man Plays CFL Pick'em in Under a Minute will still be out. It'll late this week, but it'll still be coming out. For those who just want a kind of a quick hit on what I'm doing in Pick'em and maybe getting some chances or some advice there. Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy, though, is going to change up to Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy and Pick'em. The fantasy tips are getting a bit repetitive week after week, usually the same players and that, so I'll spend a little less time on those. I will just point out the changes for the week, and I'll use the space to go a little deeper into my reasons for the Pick'em choices and give you some background if you want it, rather than just who I'm taking. So let me know what you think about these renos, especially if you've been a regular fan, and especially if there's parts of it you don't like. I don't want to fix what ain't broke. You can chime in at any time in the comments below or email me here at oldman.shoutingatclouds@shaw.ca. And like I said, I'm learning and getting better as I go. You'll notice there is a subscribe button down over there now. Anytime that I amaze you enough you decide you need a lot more, you can just hit that without even getting out of the show, apparently. Haven't tested it, but I'm told it works. So now it's time for our rant. Or rather, this time, a message, not a rant. This is for Glenn Suter from TSN. Mr. Suter, I have much respect and admiration for what you have achieved both as a player and a broadcaster. I also greatly appreciate all you have done as a supporter of and advocate for Canadian football and the CFL. However, I very much disagree with your comments around the late PI challenge in the Hamilton BC game. Your comments suggested the command center is still creating controversy. In my opinion, since the reset, they have been very consistent in confirming the rulings on the field unless there is clear and obvious evidence to overturn. Even on this play, most people do agree it was a clear and obvious penalty. And perhaps the best of the changes made, they have mostly waited for a request from the on-field officials before chiming in on plays. I can only remember one unnecessary stoppage since the reset, really. I believe the folks in the command center have done an excellent job of correcting a very bad trend and deserve our kudos rather than our complaints. Oh, and congrats on the BC Football Hall of Fame induction. So here we go. Game 1. Edmonton 27, Winnipeg 55. Putting the league on notice. I gotta say, my first thought here, I hate breaking up the game with sidelining and especially in-booth interviews. It disrupts the flow and there's no need for them. Put them in halftime. But if there was ever a time for a full in-booth interview, it was on Truth and Reconciliation Day, or at least on the game celebrating it, where they had one of the representatives of the Indigenous group and the, whatever it was, hundreds of fans they brought down from northern Manitoba. And they did a little sideline hitter with him. He deserved a full in-booth interview. That's as important as any football player you've ever had in there, any other celebrity. And yet, you do this quick little sideline thing where I don't even have time to really catch the fellow's name or title or anything like that. I gotta say, TSN, I'm disappointed. The CFL has really reached out and embraced the whole Truth and Reconciliation Day theme and supported it. They've gotten behind it completely. Time for you to step up too. You didn't even change the logos on your opening montage to represent the Indigenous logos. You gotta do better. We expect it of you. Getting on to the game. The Elk did look like they were off to a good start, recovering a Kenny Lawler fumble on Winnipeg's first drive. But then that got overturned and things pretty much went downhill. In fact, I suspect the Bombers have one less can of whoop-ass on the shelf because they certainly opened a big one on Friday night. Just after the fumble was overturned, the Elk decided to run cover zero on defense and Nick Dembski adjusted to the open middle. Bingo, 40-yard TD. And it quickly became obvious that Winnipeg was having one of those games where just nothing can go wrong. The first 4 series for the Bombers ended in 3 touchdowns and a field goal. The first 3 for the Elk, 3 punts and a turnover on downs. By the end of the first quarter, net yards were almost 10-1 for the Bombers, 205-27, and the score was 17-0. Not good. It didn't get a lot better for the Elk from there either. Dembski started the second quarter embarrassing several Elk with a beautiful 20-yard pass and run we used to call an ankle breaker. And then Brady capped off the drive with that amazing catch and run that's gone viral. I'm sure you've seen it out there. If you haven't, look for it. Brady Olvera run. He is good. He's got some talent. He does. Then Garbutt grabbed up a Rankin fumble and took it to the house. Andre Proulx joined the officials entertaining us with the character in their calls and explanations. This time he had a wonderfully timed pause in confirming the play after the review. But MBT did not look good in the first half, and Jarius Jackson's chock-a-block with cliches halftime interview did nothing to inspire confidence. So surprisingly, the Elk did come out with a bit of a spark. They picked on Winnipeg's boundary corner, Bonds, for a couple of touchdowns. Could have been a good thing, but their defense couldn't hold up. They let the Bombers answer back every time, and it got uglier and uglier. 3 last thoughts on this game. Thank you to Nick Dembski for not buying into the chicken dance, Selly. That thing has got to go the way of the dodo. And no dodo dance. I didn't mean that. Second thought, they may run out of bites when they're putting together the highlight reel for this game. It was amazing. And finally, I blame the all-white away kit that the Elk were wearing for their loss. How can you play with intensity and passion when you look like the Pillsbury Doughboy? Don't get it. White jerseys, you gotta have some kind of color in the pants. So game 2, Hamilton 32 at BC 29. Please just don't call it a bowback. This one was definitely a tale of two halves. BC started out with a jump in their step and seemed ready to pounce on the Tiger Cats. The Cats appeared sluggish and looked like they were going to play out that cliche of, the tired old East team playing late on the West Coast. And then Bo was off early. He missed 3 deep throws that were open. Could have had 21 points, didn't get them. The Tiger Cats running game was ineffective. The D-line ate up all the blocks, and the linebackers were able to flow free and unrestricted to the ball carriers and held it all to fairly short runs. In fact, Hamilton didn't get their first down until the 11:02 mark of the second quarter, and BC was up 16-0 at the half. Didn't look good here again either. But then halftime happened, and Bo flipped a switch. I don't know what he did. Maybe he went into the locker room and grabbed the overalls and just rubbed them all over himself, getting all the magic out and wringing it all out, getting it on him, because he had a game for the ages from there on. I think they ended up saying that he went 29 of his last 30 throws, and the one incompletion was a drop that was perfectly placed to James Tuck. Never throw to a fullback. We're kind of like linemen, stone hands. Anyway, the Cats, they took the second half kickoff. They used 3 passes and a run, got down the field. Greg Bell went in for a touchdown, and it looked like they had some life. Then the defenses stepped up a bit, and they traded stops until pretty much the end of the third quarter, when BC managed to have Rourke run in for his second rushing touchdown of the game. And in the fourth quarter, Bo really turned it on. He led the Cats to a field goal, 2 touchdowns, a Philly special 2-point convert that saw Tim White throwing the ball back to Bo in the end zone. They just sort of took over. At the end of all that, they were up by 3. BC did manage late in the game to march down and kick a field goal to tie it. But I got to say, within that, with 18 seconds left, so time for at least 2 plays if you do them quick and are smart, BC had 3rd and 2 on the Hamilton 4. Now keep in mind, Hamilton has outscored them in the quarter at this point by, I think, 18-0, if I remember right. Game was completely going Hamilton's way. If Coach Campbell had grown a set and gone for it there, they might have been able to win the game on one play and put it out of reach. As it was, he played the safe, conventional way of doing it and kicked the field goal to take us into overtime. That overtime, BC kicks a field goal, Hamilton a touchdown. It's fairly obvious. I thought there was a very ironic moment late in the game. During the time BC was driving down trying to get their final field goal, one of the Hamilton defensive players took a knee. And the Lions staff and players, they started losing their mind and saying, he's not really hurt, they're cheating, he's just trying to give the defense a chance to regroup. It's just all a ploy. And it could be, because if any team is going to recognize it, it should be the Lions. That fake injured defender has been a staple of their late game defense for as long as Coach Campbell has been there. A couple other thoughts in this game. The head official, Tom Valesi, was obviously auditioning for the Ben Major, Andre Proulx comedy roadshow with his perfect yada, yada, yada about the punt into the scoreboard. Brandon O'Leary-Orange had 2 targets all game. He made a bad play on the first one, dropping an easy pass, and then a great play on the second one with a spectacular catch on that touchdown that put the Tiger Cats ahead late in the fourth quarter. On the flip side, Roland Kent for the Lions had a great play early, intercepting Bo, and then a terrible play late with that overtime PI in the end zone that basically gave Hamilton the touchdown from the 1. And we may as well go on to Game 3. Ottawa 16 at Saskatchewan 29. The train in Saskatchewan runs on time. This game did start out slow, partially because, well, two really good defenses. But also both offenses were sort of out of sync. The Riders picked off Mazzoli twice in the first half, and Mario returned a missed field goal to the Ottawa 42, and yet the Riders still only had a 9-3 lead at the half. Even so, even with that slow start, it was big fun to watch the two best boundary halfbacks in the league, Roland Milligan and Damian Webb, battling each other directly on the special teams. There were some fun plays there. Other than that, though, the best play of the half was when Samuel Emelis came in and made a seal block that gave the corner to Shea Patterson on a 3rd and 2 sneak late in the half. It was too long to go straight ahead. He had to get to the outside. If he hadn't made it, they would have given Ottawa the ball in reasonably good field position. As it was, they ran another minute off the clock, and the Red Blacks didn't score any more points in the half. Now, coming out of halftime, I was jokingly suggesting that maybe the Riders should start running their DBs as receivers because they'd proven at least they could catch the ball in the first half. But Harris did start figuring it out, and the receivers got their hands back a bit. And even though that Ottawa secondary, they may be the best secondary group in the league, Harris was able to sort out what he was doing, started spreading the ball around to multiple receivers, and led them to 4 more Lowther field goals. And 1 really unlikely touchdown. I love this one. After Armstead had struggled all game for 2-3 yards, I think his average was under 4 yards and he ran for less than 50 yards. But after all of that, he ends up getting injured blocking on a play, and in comes Thomas the Train, Bertrand Houdon. What does he do? Oh, he just takes the ball up the middle, leaves Damian Webb, one of the best defenders in the league, wandering around looking for his undies and such, and streaks in for a 26-yard touchdown. Thomas the Train's got more wheels than I realized. But I also suspect that his run, maybe there should be an assist going to Raquel, the Rock Armstead, for the way he beat down that line for the first 3 quarters. He might not have been getting yards, but he wore them out. The man runs hard. The Red Blacks did have a chance to climb back in early in the 4th quarter. They were only down 15-6. They had the ball deep in the Riders' end zone. Mazzoli got a little bit of pressure. He rolled left. There was Keaton Burling right in the end zone, wide open. A perfect pass to his numbers. Boom. And he dropped it. Now, Burling obviously had a really good catch in him for this game. Maybe just the one. And he decided, I don't want to waste it here. I might need it later. So maybe he didn't use it there. Instead, he saved it for a catch that he made. A spectacular catch, mind you. But when he made on the Saskatchewan 15-yard line as time ran out and they were down 29-16. So maybe Coach Dice has to talk to him a little bit about his priorities and when to use up those good plays. The other buzz around this game was around DBs making hits on defenseless receivers or unnecessarily rough hits on receivers or whatever. Money Hunter laid out Keon Schaefer-Baker with a real hard smack along the goal line in the first half. The hit was probably legal, I think it was, but I have seen flags thrown on similar plays. Then he came in and just destroyed Sean Bain Jr.'s knee on this horrendous low hit that should have been a penalty and wasn't. And finally, with 6 seconds left in the half, Dante Williams found himself holding like a baby a squirming Khalil Pimpleton and just dropped him on his head. He was ejected to the game. Probably justified. And he'll no doubt be lighter in the pocketbook, or he might even miss a game as he goes ahead here. I do have a bit of a problem with how all of this is being portrayed in the media and apparently on the social medias, although this is the only thing close to that I do. Apparently Money Hunter is a wonderful, loving human being. He rescues puppies and he does everything that he can possibly do to make the world a better place. And he was obviously going for an interception and would never try to hurt a poor receiver. He's just not that. Whereas Dante Williams, oh my God, a devil, a demon, this cold, horrible asshole that tried to put Khalil Pimpleton's playing career at risk. Oh, how do you know that? All these people that are making those assumptions, how do you know that? I ask that, and what I get back is, well, look at the tape. It's obvious. Just look at the tape. You can see what they're doing. And I look at the tape, and I see two DBs in uncomfortable positions they don't want to be in and don't know how to get out of safely. And that's what happened. They just didn't react well to it. There's no need to ascribe all this other stuff to it. You can't tell from the actions of a few things. We don't know what was going on in their heads. And you can't decipher that from watching what they're doing in split seconds worth it. Both plays were unnecessary roughness. Both plays should have been penalized. And both probably should get some form of supplemental discipline. And all you pundits out there, you should admit that you really are not mind readers and stop trying to demonize or canonize players just based on your personal biases. Take a step back and remember, you don't really know what happened. So give it a breath. Oops, turned into grumpy old man here again, aren't I? That one always bugs me though. It's not just football, it's in life. You should never assume you know what someone else is thinking. That's just you projecting. Public service from old man. And on to game 4. Montreal 31, Toronto 37. Protecting the Chad. A rain-soaked game on natural turf. Mud flying everywhere. Jerseys torn. Nameplates and numbers ripped off or unreadable. Yes, yes, and yes. This is what football I love. Oh, I wish there were more natural turf fields. Although I think the soccer folks may not be happy with what happened, with what the football teams did to the real football teams did to that field. Anyway, I was surprised because ever since the Chad has been reinstated, Dinwiddie's been basically let him try to pass his way to redemption. Throw, 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 no more running at all. Now, this time, they obviously decided to protect him from a repeat of sort of last year's East Final with the Alouettes. They didn't give him the chance to throw a bunch of interceptions. They took the ball out of his hands and ran it. Now, I don't know if that was the game plan going in or if it was an adjustment based on the fact that the Chad, for the second week in a row, completed his first ball to a jersey of the wrong color. Either way, the Montreal's pass rush was just relentless, and it was making an aerial attack very dangerous for the Argos and the Chad. So the Argos unleashed their three-headed running attack and dominated the game in time of possession. A Montreal touchdown and 2 Toronto field goals made it 7-6 at the quarter time. In the second quarter, Toronto got a running touchdown from Carey and 3 field goals, while Montreal scored touchdowns on a nice pass to Speaker and a punt return that was very nice from James Letcher Jr. Oh, and a single on a bad kickoff decision. About 1:37 left in the half, the Owls were kicking off from their own 45 because of a Toronto penalty on the previous play. They could have had Maltos pooch it down to the 5-10 yard line. They would have had lots of time to get down there and cover from closer, held the Argos deep, and there might have been enough time for a 2-and-out. Get the ball back and put up at least a field goal of your own. But no, they decide to kick it into the end zone, give up that single point, and put the Argos with the ball on the 40. That cost them another Toronto field goal before the half was over. In the third quarter, the defenses started to step up more. The Owls were held to a single on a missed field goal, and the Argos got 1 touchdown from McMahon and a failed 2-point convert on that. And then at the start of the fourth quarter, what a heads up, what a smart play. There are some people that know their football. And Dejon Brissett was one of them. He made a beautiful play, and he really saved the Chad's bacon early in the game. There was a play where the defenders had caught Chad, had cut the Chad, they had him wrapped up, they had him all in the embrace. The whistle maybe could have gone for the embrace call, but they didn't. And Brissett, who was in there for pass blocking on it, saw what was going on, reached in, ripped the ball out of the Chad's hands, and scampers up the field for 13 yards. Heads up football. Love to see a receiver thinking like that. So in the fourth quarter, Toronto kicked a field goal, and Montreal scored a touchdown and then a 2-point convert to tie it up again, 31. Looked like it was going to be a barn burner, but even though the Owls made some nice plays there, including Julian Grant breaking up a potential interception and protecting his quarterback, and one where Walter Fletcher made a 3-yard run, just a plunge up the middle. It was one of the prettiest 3-yard runs for a first down I've seen in a long time. But they didn't score anymore. And meanwhile, the Argos did manage to make the last 2 of their 8 field goals in this game and walked away with a much-needed win. So that's the game. Don't mind the hounds in the background. The goddess has left today. She's off for the Rebel Rally I talked about a couple of weeks ago. I'll talk more about that next week. But anyway, they're all upset because she's gone and they've got to put up with old man for a month here now. Time to move on to the gambling advice. Now, if you've watched this at all, you'll know when I do this, my gambling advice is always the same. It's my joke. If you're considering gambling on the games this weekend, don't. But maybe this time I'll go a bit further and give another public service announcement. Stretch it a bit more. If you are inclined to make a wager, if you figure I'd like to put a little bit of money down, do it strategically. And one of the things to think about is this bit of background. Companies tend to spend most of their advertising budget on the products that bring them the greatest return, the best bang for their buck, the most ROI. And what do the betting companies keep advertising to us, keep trying to foist on us? Do. Prop bets. Look at this. Who over or under on yardage, over or under in scoring, all of these things are wonderful. Now, if the companies are making their most profit on that, who's not making as much money? Maybe you? So yeah, if you're going to bet, if you want to do it, if you enjoy it, it's something you like doing, be smart. Stick to money lines or the spread. The odds are a lot better there. And I guess that takes us to extra points. First thing, we heard this week that penalties in the CFL are at their lowest level since 1974. 50 years. Wow. And especially impressive when you consider that most of what are big roughing penalties now and getting people ejected or suspended or fined and that, they were highlight reel hits back in the 70s. So there was a lot less penalties to call. Either the teams are playing with a lot more discipline or something else has changed. I think it's kind of a combination. I do think teams are being much smarter about not taking penalties. But it may also have to do with the fact that apparently offensive line holding is legal this year, at least judged on how the games are being called. I've also been wondering if maybe the Als' injury management on Cody back with his hamstring could have been handled better. It could be a bunch of different things, but he, and frankly, because of it, the Als haven't looked the same since he's come back. And like I said earlier, the head refs this weekend. Game 1, Andre Proulx. And after further review, the ruling on the field is confirmed. Game 2, Tom Valesi. Yada. Game 3, Ben Major. After all of that, I'm beginning to think that Justin McInnes maybe needs to step his game up a bit. And I mean Justin McInnes, the ref, not the Justin McInnes, the player. I'm loving the way the officials are making the announcements now. Keep it up, guys. What else? Oh, yeah. Logan Ferland has played every position on the O-line for the Riders this year. Least spot duty, finishing off games and whatnot, but every one of the 5. And he's looked anywhere from sensational to, at a minimum, serviceable in all of the positions. If he doesn't get at least the West's nominee for Lineman of the Year this year, it's going to be a travesty. I don't see how they can not send him through. Now, the Ottawa Red Blacks, after this loss this weekend, they've got their next 2 games in Montreal and Toronto against the Alouettes and the Argonauts. Given the current state of the team, and especially the linebacker situation, they could easily lose both of those. Hamilton Tiger Cats' next 2 games are at home, and they're against the Bombers, which could be tough because the Bombers are playing well, we all know that, but they're not going to have another game like last week. Lightning's not going to strike twice like that. They'll play well, and Hamilton has always played well against them. I believe they beat them at home the last 2 seasons, even though the talent was inferior to Winnipeg's. And earlier this season, they took them right down to the wire in Winnipeg. So they've got that one, and then they're home against Calgary. It's entirely conceivable Hamilton could win both of those games. And if they do, That means that the Week 21 game between Ottawa and Hamilton in Ottawa will be for that last playoff berth in the East. Don't think anyone saw that coming. And who says the CFL isn't exciting? What else? Oh, yes. When Chris Jones has nothing else but defense to think about, turns out he's still pretty damn good. And that's about it for this week. So it's my usual beg time. As I always say, help me out here, please. Remember to hit the subscribe button and to share this with anybody you know who may like it, but not. Boost my ego, smash on that there like button, boom, 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 boom. Give me lots of likes, Help me, let's work together. Let's get the logarithm's attention and so it'll start spreading the word out there. Hallelujah! I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope we all get to enjoy a great weekend of CFL football. Much luck with your pick'em in fantasy this week. And until next week, get the hell off my lawn!